here. The News Media Bargaining Code.
Right.
And so
you have to be an organization that generates at least $150,000 a year in I think it's an ad revenue in order to qualify. So that would be one way of sorting out, do you actually have an audience?
Right.
Have you actually proven that you have the trust of a certain number of people that you can make a certain amount of money? So that is one good way of sorting them out.
That's interesting, and that actually answers one of my questions about how in the world is this going to be implemented with so many different publishers.
And that's one of the things Cicilline's bill proposes to do is to allow, the way I'm reading it, is to allow an organization, say like the National Newspaper Association, to bargain on behalf of its members.
Right.
Because they're not going to deal with all these individual little papers. And so then it's almost kind of like a union. It's kind of like a union for the newspaper industry to go in and do collective bargaining for us and get us the best deal they can from the boss.
Exactly. Exactly right. Yes. So here it is. The digital giants would not be able to abuse their positions by making it take it or leave it payment by making take it or leave it payment offers to news businesses for their journalism. Instead, here's the interesting thing. In the case of a standoff, an arbitration panel would make a binding decision on a winning offer. And I brought this up to someone recently, and they actually mentioned, that sounds a lot like the way they do it with radio already. And I don't know how long they've been doing it, but with radio, it's called the statutory royalty rate. And it is determined by some organization that, to address your issue earlier about like how would we know if we're getting paid fairly, they're doing audits on radio stations. They try to figure out how many people are listening, and they use it to establish a rate that the artist should be paid for their song. And I think it's just a standard rate no matter who you are. It could be Taylor Swift or the local jam band, and if they put their music out there, it's just they're going to get paid more the more it gets paid. It's a rate. So it's just, but it doesn't matter who you are, that would be established. So I guess that is what it seems like. That's what Australia is basically doing here.
Right. And when you start talking about rating people or trying to determine who's ethical, who's above board, who is truly in the news business. It's not a perfect analogy, but we have the motion picture rating system. Okay. Right. And we have, not that I think people pay much attention to that anymore, but we have a panel that nationally ranks the appropriateness of content for movies.
Right. Yep.
I mean, and that's long accepted. Nobody thinks that's communism.
Right. Right.
Occurring in a democratic country. So I mean, sure, there's always dangers in saying that, we don't want to get to the point where certain, outlets are state media or, have the stamp of approval of, one party or another. I mean, there's a lot of crazy directions you can go with that. Right. But reasonable people ought to be able to come up with reasonable regulations and programs that would plug into this to make sure that the money is going to, like, for instance, do you cover city government? Do you cover county government? Right. How many other outlets in your area are there? Now, I could foresee a premium for being in an otherwise news desert. If I'm not here, nobody's covering those things.
Right. Yeah.
So I should get some brownie points for that, I think.
Right. Somehow align the economic incentive to fill in those deserts, because the existing incentives are just not there.
And look what happens too if they do come up with an equitable system. And I mean, I have no idea what that monetary equation looks like. Sure. we make so much money every year from printing legal notices, for instance, which is all,
Right.
decided at the state government level, what our rate is and
Right.
for how many column inches and what the font size is and all that.
Right.
Okay, those legal notice payments, in a lot of cases, are what make newspapers or used to make newspapers profitable. But I mean, now it's like, yeah, we got to have that.
Right.
But so now you come with this Google or Facebook thing. Is that payment going to be enough to make a community newspaper now suddenly look like a much more attractive business for people to want to be in?
Right.
Did
Yeah.
it make that much of a difference? I mean, we
Right.
don't know that, but that could really be a game changer in the
Right.
value of newspapers
Right.
serving the small communities.
Exactly. Right. Right. Yeah. That subset. Yeah. Because, I mean, there's like it's like two different worlds: the mainstream national media and the local media. They're like almost in two different businesses. You can't even really compare them in many ways. I want to just really get this in here because this one point, this is the last one I'm going to really make based on your article. Just kind of going back to the fact that they're just too powerful. They're monopolistic. You're saying, for a company already facing accusations of monopoly and calls for greater regulation in the U.S., Facebook's action down under surely proves any company capable of turning off access to every news organization in a whole country, let alone the world, is one with too much power. And I just want to drive this point home. I think that they've been doing this type of stuff, just not in such a public, dramatic way. They are publishers, no matter how much they want to claim that they're just a platform. They're making decisions on what appears. They're censoring things. So,
but they're not creating the content.
They're not creating the content.
Decisions about what appears, but they're